start recording. There we go. All right. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is part of our webinar series, Becoming Beta Secunde. So for those of you that will be starting in the fall, fun fact, that is what your cohort will go by. I'll have Dave and Sheila kind of shout out as we go on what cohorts they are named after. So again, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have these guests here today. So I'm going to cut this short and sweet. They did ask something of me, though, that is very MSOD. So this is a request from your guest speakers today. It's called Bringing Voice into the Room. So they'd love to invite anyone who is brave enough, maybe come off mute, let us know where you're from. And again, very OD, we always want to accept our emotions. So what emotions are you feeling about either starting this program or thinking about this program? What is on your mind? So I'll let whoever wants to go first come off mute.
I decided I wasn't going to jump on and go first because I always do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm Karen Wyrick, and I am so excited. I was like, I cannot wait. August cannot come soon enough. I've been really, I can't say it, I've been really fed up and bored at work. So I was like, I need something else, and this is what I need. And I can't wait for it to start.
I love that. Thanks, Karen. Karen, I think you're just excited in general. I think that's just like your energy, and that's okay because that's mine too. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone else want to come off mute and introduce?
I can. I'm Megan. Currently live in Charleston, South Carolina, but I'm moving to New Jersey next month. So staying on the East Coast. And I second that. I'm just really excited. So both, I've heard obviously great things, supposed to be life-changing, but also being in HR, I'm on a number of projects where I'm like, I know once I'm in the program that I'm going to have such a stronger skill set, I could do a better job. So anxious for that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. And I do not envy you on that move, my friend.
I know. I haven't lived in the cold in so long, so we'll see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? And no pressure if you're working. Miss Laura, I see you off mute.
Yes. So Megan, I'm in Philly and I welcome you to New Jersey. No matter what part you're in, you won't be that far from me. So I'm excited about this too. I've been waiting since last October to start this program, and I'm fairly convinced this will change my career course. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laura. I appreciate it. Miss Leslie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leslie, and I am in central Minnesota, and I am an executive coach. But for the last 10 years, I've been mentored by an MSOD person, and she has changed my life. And then finally, she said, why don't you apply? So I'm too very excited to meet everyone. I'm glad to see that there are some East Coasters, so I'm not the latest time zone when we're trying to form groups. And just super excited to meet everyone in the program.
Absolutely. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Leslie. Fun fact, I actually chose to recruit for this program because MSODers have changed my life as well. They're very good friends and really are kind of my guiding star. I notice I tend to call MSODers if I'm ever feeling lost or confused with life. So thank you so much for sharing. I know we have a couple off camera. It's totally fine if you're working and just tuning in. I'll pause for one moment to see if anyone wants to come off mute though and introduce themselves.
Hi, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki. And I'm actually originally from New Jersey, but moved to New York for the last 5 years. I have more of an EY, consulting kind of background in the HR space, specifically recruiting and learning and development. But most recently, in the past couple of years, I started my own company. It's a startup in the learning virtual world. And I am so excited, about this program. I'm really looking looking forward to meeting you all, as well as getting the opportunity to travel with everyone and get some new experiences globally. So very excited and feeling very grateful at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. East Coast is coming in strong tonight. Very interesting. Thank you all. I know it's a little bit later there. And Jessica, I think you were going to come off mute, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I was. So my name's Jessica. I'm a candidate for the program. So I'm still in the process of applying, but similar to Nikki, I have a consulting and an executive search background. I'm with actually Korn Ferry. So we could probably be colleagues. Nikki, you probably have seen a lot of the same sort of advisory and executive search work. And so, yeah, I'm really interested in just growing my career in the organizational development path. I hope to take on more CEO succession projects with Korn Ferry and do some more of that work. Very excited to meet all of you and can't wait to build some really great relationships that I hope last a long time. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jessica. I'm going to invite, I know Dave wanted to comment on this question, so I'm going to invite him to come off mute. What were your sentiments before starting the program, Dave?
Oh yeah, so I was overwhelmed, but I went to a similar thing to this, and I saw, you know, people talking about the values and what OD stood for. I had not had the opportunity to work with a lot of people in OD beforehand, but as soon as I saw that slide with the values of OD, I was like, yeah, that's me. Like whatever else you want to talk about is fine. This is where I want to be. So I immediately resonated with the program. But yeah, for me, it was a pretty big step. And I'll tell you, share more about that as we go. But yeah, just really, really excited to meet you all. Love the energy in the room. It's so much fun to meet the next cohort, or and kind of contribute to your experience with this. So thank you.
I love that. So from behind the screen to center stage, Dave. That's great. Amazing. And Miss Sheila, would you like to come off mute? And I'd love to hear your sentiments as well.
When I went to the program, the pandemic has just started. For me, it felt both like a leap of faith and also very providential. I had just left Procter & Gamble, which I was with for about 14 years, and I was ready to go smack into coaching and consulting, and then the pandemic happened. And a lot of the agreements I had with clients sort of disappeared, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I got that email from Rachel. So for me, I had been searching for it actually. I wanted to join a few years before that, but because I was so busy, I just couldn't do it. And when the pandemic hit and I said, what am I going to do with my life? And Msod came along and I said, now I know what I want to do. So it was a bit scary at first, but it was also more exciting. Well, the flip side of anxiety is excitement, right? And now that I'm into it, I know that I really made the right choice.
I love that. Thank you, Sheila. I giggle because I tell my students even on here, I've told them, you don't find OD, OD finds you. and it just kind of comes to light in that way. It's really interesting how that works. So thank you all for sharing voice. I really appreciate it. And so great to see all these different walks of life. Dave, you had something?
Well, I saw Laura go off mute. I wanted to give her an opportunity to speak if she wanted to.
Oh, it's Laura. Did I miss you?
Thank you, Dave. I have a quick question, Tiffany. To your knowledge, is anyone else in medicine in this cohort yet?
There is. I actually do need to connect you. I have a practicing MD who got in and she's from Australia.
Okay, fascinating. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very exciting. And there's also someone else on this call. I won't name names, but I need to connect you too, because you go to visit her hospital every once in a while. So I'll put that out there. So thank you again. I apologize in advance if you hear any squeaking in the background. I got a new puppy. His name is Teddy. He's a Yorkie Poo and he's 10 weeks. and he's bouncing off the walls right now, of course. So, but with that, we'll go ahead and we'll jump into our next section. You guys know us at Graziadio. Again, my name is Tiffany Marmolejo. I'm the executive advisor for the Msod program. I will go ahead and I'll run through this really quickly in case you have no idea what type of program you got into, but it is a 2-year 40-unit program with 6 residential. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and that's actually the first thing we're going to jump into. And this was one of our later cohorts. And I didn't do the introductions first. We're going backwards today. But this is the official introduction of Miss Sheila Tan, the CEO and executive coach for Altius Coaching and Consulting. She is part of Omega Prime, which is 22. That's a 22. Bachelor's in Business Administration. She is live from Manila. Maybe she's traveling a lot, so she actually might not be in Manila. And she is amazing. Fun fact about her, like we mentioned, she worked with Rachel coming into this program during the pandemic. So that's exciting. And then we have Dave Langemak, a program manager at Google, who is part of Psi Prime, an undergrad from UC Berkeley. I won't hold that against you, Dave. I am a UC Irvine anteater, but I guess we're technically kind of still friends or frenemies, maybe. Bachelor's in electrical engineering and computer science, as well as his master's in computer science from UCLA. Dave is live from Cupertino and recently started learning improv. I'm also curious to see how that helps your OD work. I'm wondering if that's kind of some comedic relief, but
No, it actually, it helps a lot. There's some of the fundamental things of improv actually are the core of teamwork. And so everything from yes and, building on what other people say, what other people want, building rapport, all of those things actually feed directly into building an effective team, in my opinion.
Sorry, I was on mute. That's amazing. I was thinking about that. Yeah, very interesting. So I want to jump into a couple questions that I have prepared. Don't worry, everyone who's listening, you will have a moment to ask your questions as well. So feel free to jot them down. But for both of you, I'll go ahead, I guess, start with Sheila first. Everyone here is wondering what you guys do on the global intensives. I know that's a hot topic and they want to know what's happening. Miss Sheila, I know you just came back from France. I saw your pictures all over LinkedIn. I loved it. Very jealous. Do you want to share a little bit of light on what that experience was like? Obviously, you're coming into Philippines and France are very different, climate-wise, culture-wise. Can you share a little bit more about what you learned?
So I don't know what I can share to the people who are incoming. I'd like to share my personal experience. So I've been into consulting quite a bit, and I was working with American companies for about 15 years, all of my corporate life actually. And going into Europe obviously is very different. The culture is very different. But what makes the experience I think extraordinary is that I experienced myself very differently. And France was like the third intensive that we had. And prior to that, we had a lot of work on ourselves, working on how we need to be aware of how we come across, how we are perceived by other people and all that. And so being an executive coach and consultant, I'm used to being focused on myself. What do I do about this? How do I come off as an expert and all that? But coming into France, I realized that it's not about me. And when it's about me, it's actually not very helpful to clients. So it's balancing the awareness of how do I become sort of an expert? How do I do? So first we have clients wherever we go. We work with a client in France, and how do I become helpful without focusing on myself? How do I become aware of my own issues so that it doesn't stain the lens of what I will perceive the problem of the client to be? So that was very helpful, sort of putting myself into their shoes, what it must be for them, and also being able to zoom out and understand it from a systemic perspective. So that was what was incredible for me.
I love that, Sheila. I have one follow-up question, if you don't mind. I think I get a lot of questions, from our students about coming from different industries or having different backgrounds, right? They might have different, we mentioned Miss Laura's from medical industry, right? And so she'll start working with industries that are maybe nonprofit. So how have you noticed your approach or your exploration on the company and being able to help them changes from client to client?
So in MSOD, we learned the different slices of the skills of the perspectives in consulting. So as I mentioned, one thing that I have found to be very important is the concept of self as instrument. So first is understanding myself. Second is the different perspectives. So we are taught the different models, different concepts, different theories, and yet once we're in front of the clients, how to set that aside and understand where these people are coming from. And I find that whatever industry they're in, whatever culture, if we understand that lens of understanding where they're coming from and that the presenting problem is probably a symptom of something else, and helping them see through that is a skill that will benefit you wherever you are and whoever you're talking to.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And Dave, I want to switch over to you really quickly. I know you just got back from London, about to graduate, which is exciting. They're all about to enter and you're about to close. So I'd love to hear your perspective now, finishing up the program, having those 2 weeks with your cohort. I'm sure it was a little emotional, to say the least. But I'd love to hear just the sentiments you have about that kind of final 2 weeks together.
Okay. That's an interesting question, and I'll be very transparent with you all. So I had two experiences in London. The first was the first half where we did a lot of integration exercises. So we literally played games together, designed by the faculty to help us bring a bunch of these lessons to life and like generate the experiences that we could then, carry forward with us. I think that is one of the magical parts of the program, is how, the experiential nature of it, and really, bringing the theories we read about it to life in the program. And then I had this phenomenal experience. I had a very diverse team, and we worked together phenomenally well. And I learned, not only how to work together and about our clients, and learn to love them and work on their challenges, but also like built these great relationships with the other people in my cohort, many of who I had not worked with that closely before. And that is the foundation of like OD. And I think someone mentioned like relationships to carry forward. Like this is where they're forged. And then I got COVID, and so as did 3 other students and a couple of one of the faculty and one of the LGCs, or 2 of the LGCs. And so it was this weird disjoint experience of we're working together very intensely, having this wonderful experience, to being isolated in my hotel room in a castle in outside of London. And it was interesting to have that perspective of being in the room but not being in the room. There's a lot of, like anything in as an OD, you just try to learn what the lessons are in each of these experiences. And so day by day we would figure out better ways to work together, that we would get be more included. I wouldn't say we got it perfect. Like at the end of the day, I was still in my room, but we made huge improvements over that period of time. So it's interesting. You're asking about the closing, and in the closing, I'm still like grappling with, like, did I close? Because I didn't connect with a bunch of folks, and so we're like, well, we're going to definitely get together around graduation, and so I'm kind of anticipating that will be, for many of us, our kind of closing experience. But yeah, sorry, I think that answered your question.
Oh, no, thank you. Did you say castle?
Yeah, so Chris Worley, who's
You had me at castle.
Yeah, it was actually, I would say, more beautiful than I expected. It was this beautiful castle. It was also a business school there. So, and like literally when we get there, there's a wedding going on. The castle grounds, it's on a very large grounds. They have a huge, team. The food was amazing. It was everything I could dream for. And then I got COVID. But, so, but it was, if you're going to get COVID, you might as well be there.
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. So I want to touch on one more thing that you mentioned that I talk a lot with the incoming students. We talk about the feedback rich environment. You mentioned the LGCs. They probably have no idea. They know what you're talking about, but they have no idea what that stands for probably. And I imagine coming from such a large company like Google, maybe sometimes all of that feedback doesn't necessarily happen. So love to just hear your experience on what that was like to get those 360s happening in this, I call it sandbox environment.
Well, and the, the one of the transformations I think that happens for everyone in the group is, so in the first couple of intensives, they just intentionally create this very safe container where you can give each other feedback and share how you're experiencing each other, which for myself was immensely valuable, feedback and experiences and conversations, right? Like they really just build a lot of time and a lot of safety to have those conversations early on. And then by, intensive 4, 5, 6, that time disappears. Like they don't have time for walk and talks and things like that. But we all crave it, right? We know we want these, we're experiencing new things, we're trying out new things, we all have and so when we're building our consulting groups and when we're doing our group activities, we intentionally, we go into it like, okay, what are we're going to spend an hour and just talk about everyone's goals for this. And okay, and then I want feedback. How am I doing on this? And then, I'm facilitating something large for the first time. Okay, this is how you were received, Dave. This is how, when you did this is how it came across. When you did this, you were really energized. When you did this, you kind of lost the room, right? And so just getting that real-time feedback from people who genuinely love you and care about you and are vested in your growth, right? It's one of the key parts of the program, in my opinion.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to switch over to Miss Sheila. I have a quick question for you. I think another big question that I get coming into this program is a majority of it is in online space, right? Unless you're together for that week or 2 weeks. And then you, of course, are across the world. I actually had the pleasure to go to the Philippines a couple months ago, and there is a 13-hour time difference, if I'm not mistaken, from California to the Philippines. So how do you stay connected? How do you feel involved and build that community with your classmates virtually, so far away, but then you're together, but then you're apart, but then you have faculty, but then you have learning consultants. How does that work?
So apart from having to wake up early, I feel like I'm as close to everyone as they are to each other, because that's the gift of technology. We have a lot of WhatsApp group. I have like 5 different WhatsApp group with there's just 11 of us in our cohort, and they have 5 WhatsApp group. One is for our learning group. There's a small group that you'll be a part of. One is just for shopping. Another is with teachers. Another is the students only and all that. So I feel very connected. Yeah, I don't think distance has been an issue apart from having to wake up early, especially with a daylight saving time difference. So yeah, I don't think it's any different.
Yeah, I applaud you. I'm not a super early morning person. So I applaud you for doing that for your learning and your learning style. So thank you for sharing. I'll get to questions soon, guys. I can see your faces. They're like ready to ask you things. But Dave, I want to make sure that I ask you, you've managed people at Google for a very long time and even before then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you view maybe your leadership style or the way you approach strategy with your teams, now having this OD lens in such a technical industry and such a technical space? What does that look like for you?
I mean, and I was thinking about this a little bit, and so there's the part of why I joined this program was because I didn't feel like I was up to the challenge of becoming a manager of managers. Like my team was growing a lot, and there were a lot of challenges with that. And part of the reason I joined the program was to kind of build some of those skills, and I'm happy to say that it, was very successful at doing that. At least that's my opinion. The other part, and part of that is like coming, everyone wants to be authentic, but where was I holding myself back from showing up authentically? Where was I holding back in sharing feedback with other people? And so part of the program was really helping me to expand my capabilities and my capacity to have these conversations where maybe I'm not comfortable, maybe the other person's not comfortable, but really have those in a productive manner. So that's just fundamentally some changes that I've had. And then the program itself is designed to teach us these skills around organization development, organization, like what's the structure, how should it be? And so I'm having much more productive conversations with my leadership, with my, the other people, my peers, on how we should be structuring these things to be more effective. So, again, that may be a little ancillary to what you're saying, but it was also a key outcome of the program for me, was to have some thoughts and knowledge, and now stronger opinions kind of grounded in data about how things should be done.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think we all, as we progress through our careers, sometimes we still are like you mentioned, holding ourselves back a little bit because we think, can I do this? Can I be on this large scale and this large level? And so it's beautiful to see what happens when you let that go. It's in the back of your head, right? And so
absolutely. And also, like, as at Google, I largely had experience with engineers, frankly, and so this expanded my experience and vocabulary and all of that, which has gone back and improved my ability to work with those core groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys both for sharing. I'm gonna let you guys at them. So if you feel free, ask your questions, what's on your mind. Allow you guys to come off mute, and any sentiments that you have for either Sheila or Dave, feel free.
Is it me again? Oh my goodness gracious.
It's okay, Karen. It's okay.
It's just me, I guess. Yeah, I was really intrigued by like how much I'm reading, how much I'm writing, what I'm doing kind of between these trips and intensives and everything. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be reading all the time. I'm gonna be writing all the time. But I'd like a reality check on that, and what your experience has been through each of the units, and like, are some way more intensive and sort of the background work and the research work versus others?
So I'll go first. There are there are more intensive ones and more intensive professors too. So the good thing is they give the syllabus way ahead. So at least for me, that gives me time to sort of schedule and work things out. And sometimes in the cohort, we help each other too. Like we say, we don't have the time for this, and this may be a secret. Tiffany, don't show this yet to any of the professors.
Will not be released on the recording.
Thank you. So we help each other out. So sometimes we form a group and say, so I'll make a summary of this, and then we discuss it together and stuff like that. The writing is the papers are very short. So in fact, our problem is usually how to keep it shorter. So I don't have problems with the writing. Most of the papers I'm able to do within 30 minutes or so, most. So that's not a problem.
I see some waves of relief happening. Maybe we'll see. Dave,
I was showing my bookcase full of books that most of them came from this program. And actually, I think the favorite, I can't remember who, I can't attribute this, unfortunately, but part of this is learning to be a master's student, right? Like the reality is you can't read all this stuff. And as Sheila aptly mentioned, you lean on each other, you work together, you figure out like how you can get through it. And kind of, another very OD opinion is like, what you were intended to learn is what you'll learn, right? And so I was naturally drawn to some of the content, and I read every word of that, and I was naturally not attracted to some of the content, and I read less of that, right? And that's just the way it is. As far as most of the papers are not that bad. The thesis is real, that's real. They try to give you space to do that, right? And they'll try to work with you early, but it is a lot of work. I know, because I'm still working on mine. But the papers themselves, the presentations, all those things, actually they're fun because oftentimes you're working with other people in your cohort. It's another chance to learn from each other, another chance to experience that. So,
Dave, what do you mean when you say the thesis is real?
Yeah, what's the right way to describe this? If let's put it this way, I've had theses shared with me that were over 100, 150 pages. And this is APA style, so it's all double space and there's a lot of blank space, but that's a lot of content, right? Like, for example, I'll just share my experience, right? Like I'm studying economic development agencies in France. I'm getting up at 1:30 in the morning to do interviews with people in France, which were interviews that I had to go and reach out to them and set up. And now I'm getting my data now to try to be done in the end of July. So you can choose your own adventure, your own path, and some choices you can, a lot of people choose things that necessitate them talking to their coworkers or people that they coach or whatever. I chose something that specifically because I wanted to have this experience talking to people in other cultures, right? And that's why I chose my topic. I think most people, the part that most people get hung up on, if you haven't done scholarly work like this, is the literature review. So the literature review is basically, and don't take notes, Gary will go over this with you ad nauseum, but the literature review is basically you take some area of research. For me, it was economic development agencies, and you learn everything possible about that. Guess what? There's a lot of articles out there in the world. Sorry, Sheila, go ahead. Go ahead and jump in on
that. So I guess my advice would be work on something that you're really interested in. I'm working on mindset of top executives. So it's something I really love. And so the literature review has been exciting for me. In fact, I'm happy to have a lot of venue to see, people have worked on this. I never knew they thought of this. They've made these studies in different industries and all that. So it's quite nerdy, but I enjoy reading them most of the time. And I love my thesis advisor, so he helps me a lot on that too. So he tells me, okay, you're on the right track. Okay, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Okay, you don't have to do this. So that helps a lot. So if it's something you're interested in, and I guess if you're more aware of your own patterns. So I'm the type of person who likes to do sit down one whole day and do everything, but do nothing for like a month and just think about things at the back of my head. But once I sit down, I write everything down. So I've sort of did trials and errors on how to make the most out of myself. So that will help, since I do a lot of things too. Sometimes I do coaching sessions up to midnight, and it's hard and I talk to people from different time zones as well. So sometimes it's difficult to know when I'll have the time. So sort of knowing how I can focus myself and get productive has been really helpful.
Yeah, plus one to what Sheila just said. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is an amazing learning experience. And it's in a space that many of us have not experienced before. So there's a learning curve involved. And yeah, I'm as I said, I'm getting up at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm loving every one of those hours talking to people. Like it's an amazing experience. I would have had it any other way. And it's just you're gonna face parts of you that doesn't want to work on stuff, right? And you're gonna have to work through that.
I love that you guys said that. I don't know if this sentiment resonates with both of you, but I had a student that said she's just being intentional with her time. Like this is her intention is to succeed in her thesis. And that's where she's the 1:30. It's like, okay, cool. This is you get to nerd out, as Sheila mentions. So I think we have the right audience for that today. So I want to be mindful of time. We definitely have time for one more question. I'd love anyone else who has anything that's on your mind. These two are almost done. So they're on the latter end of the program. They're on the downhill slope. So yeah, anything else you guys want to pick their brain about?
I have a question, but since I already asked a follow-up, I'll let somebody else go unless there isn't.
I have one that you kind of touched on, but before I decided to like officially apply to the program, I actually reached out to some people like alumni on LinkedIn, and I feel like there was a common theme that Dave, you almost used like the same phrase, like you're meant to learn what you're going to learn, or you'll get out of the program what you put in. So it seems, I guess, obviously uniquely structured and in some ways not really structured, but I guess without those, for lack of a better word, structure or those guidelines in place, what advice would you have to get the most out of the program? Because I hear life changing, I hear all of these, very, very profound ways that it's described, but it seems like it's really, I guess, up to your own input. So if you have any advice or best tips that you have for making the most of it.
I'm trying to read the question behind the question, Megan. I guess is it yeah. I mean, what are you expecting out of the experience? What's drawing you to this room today?
To the program, I mean, I think that just being a better leader, better problem solver, more impactful in my role, I guess in my life, because I hear can touch like every aspect of your life is what I've heard from people. But again, it seems like unique experience. So I guess any advice for making the most of it? I've talked to, I mean, some alumni seem like it changed their life. Some did talk about the thesis, and it was a little bit more of like, not like a negative tone, but it didn't seem like they really were as impacted as some were. So want to make sure that it going the completely positive, getting the most out of it channel.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that is a key part of it. I mean, I'm wondering if this mirrors some of the sentiment you heard, like, I've heard like, I want to understand how this is going to benefit me before I start doing it. And that's not really how it works. Usually you do that after the fact. I guess the best part I can say is, for me, I always had a sense of where they wanted me to go. And that's very much part of the program design. Like, I know there's this aspect of it, it's a very unstructured program, but they actually have a very intentional design to bring you from where you are today to some end state, which is an OD practitioner. And for me, it was just trusting the process. Like, Gary, Chris, Darren, all of the faculty, like, these are their areas of expertise. Each of them has been given part of my learning, and they are that. It's interesting. That's in hindsight, like they each have an area of expertise, and they are not complete autonomy, but within a framework of values and whatnot, they have autonomy to kind of design the session for us and structure it and adjust it. And so we're just really, living into what they design has been what helped me the most. And Sheila, I'll let you, please.
So many times I've had this feeling of, when it feels like my life has been a lie, like everything I thought of was true is not. So be ready for those moments if you want to be transformed. Because if everything that you want to understand is in reference to what you already know, that's already a limitation in itself. So if you could suspend what you know for now about yourself, about life, about the world, and just see it from that clear lens and perspective, that might be helpful.
Thank you.
That was very OD. It came through the screen at me on that one, Sheila. I love it. Well, thank you all so much. I want to be mindful of time. So Dave and Sheila, I want to give you a moment. Any final comments? Any final thoughts? They're very excited, as you can tell. Going back to when you were about to start the program, any sentiments that you want to just bring voice into the room?
So my cohort was the COVID cohort, right? Like we lost a year. Like it's a 3-year program for us, and many of us faced a crisis of do I want to keep doing this, and we lost some people, right? My cohort shrank. For me personally, right, like how faculty showed up, how the program supported me through that. I came to the realization that this is something I wanted as part of my identity. They talk about one of the magic things about OD is the alumni network, and the people are loyal, they love the program, they get each other. And so, and I saw that and I'm like, I want to be that. And I can, now that I'm through it, I'm like, yes, I really feel like I've made it. And anyway, so I guess what I would suggest is think about, what you want to be when you grow up. I got some gray in here. And if it's calling to you, it's probably for a reason.
For me, what led me to the program and what keeps me on it is a sense of purpose. And if you could find that sort of guiding light, whatever it may be, that is broad enough for you to be flexible in what to do, and yet sort of bright enough for you to want to go through the hardships, sometimes difficult readings, that would be helpful, I think, for you, for the people around you, and for the world. So, and that will help you go through the program as well. It felt to me like, as you can tell, I have a messianic kind of sense of self, that I want to impact the world, I want to change the world and all of that. And OD has become very instrumental in helping me see different perspectives that will allow that. And that is what keeps me in the program, what makes me say every day that I made the right choice. So if you could find that in yourself, that might help you too.
I don't have words, and I normally don't not have words. Thank you both so much. It's been so exciting. I've gotten to work with these individuals, and I'm so blessed to be a part of their journeys. And I talk a lot about the program, but I wanted them to meet people that are in the program, going through it in the weeds, as we say. And so I appreciate all of your insights. Everything that you said today was so incredible, so valuable. Congratulations on all of the transformation that you both have achieved so far, and the resilience, because it's not easy. So I just want to say congratulations. Dave, I can't wait for you to come down for graduation and like cheer you on. Sheila, you're on your way too. We'll be there soon. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, and before I close this out, Miss Laura, yes.
Tiffany, I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I think I have everything down that I could glean from the website in terms of scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when they're going to give us any more information? Because I am blocking out time like 4 months in advance for what can be done and what can't be done. So
Yeah.
I want to have this blocked out as a priority so I know not to schedule.
Absolutely. Let me connect you with our program advisor. She'll have more insight on what that'll look like. I think these two can agree that schedules are a little all over the place. So I'm going to try to get you as much as I can 4 months in advance. But yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Dave and Sheila, if you don't mind, would people be able to connect with you maybe on LinkedIn for any further? I know Miss Leslie had a couple further questions. You also post some really great content. And so feel free to connect, continue the conversation, dive in a little bit deeper. MSOD has something that I really love. They call it walk and talks. So I encourage you to schedule one if you can in between thesis time for these two. But yeah, schedule a walk and talk, ask more questions, dive a little deeper. And so thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate you. I'm excited. This is going to be a really great cohort. No offense to the other two cohorts that are on here. Just again, another great legacy of the long gray line. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your evenings, maybe bedtime, East Coast. And I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks, everyone. Bye.